down. Oh, there are a lot of notes here. Well, they're not mine. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Way in the back.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not a speech maker, you know, but what I'm sure that, you know, one of the reasons that Jenny wants me to come over here is because you like to meet me, right? And what do you do when you like to meet someone? You want to find out who they are and what they are. And the best way to do that is that you just ask questions. And first of all, I must warn you, is that if you have a very thick accent, I may not be able to understand the question, and I will ask for a translator, but please do not be embarrassed about that, because I'm embarrassed that I can't understand it, except that I'm not too bad at accents, because I'm supposed to be able to do about any accent in the world. But nevertheless, sometimes it's the translation of certain words that I haven't heard before said in a certain way. Now, can you understand everything I'm saying? All right? Well, of course, the actors are trained to, we're in the business of communication, and if we're not understood, then obviously you don't work too much, right? As a matter of fact, as playing Scotty in Star Trek, I was asked by the producer, please don't make the accent too thick, because I can do it. Because the majority of Americans wouldn't understand me if I spoke as, shall we say, a real thick Aberdeen accent. Well, I get paid for doing that. As a matter of fact, there's a lady here from Yorkshire. They just, I don't know whether they're here now or not. If you're here, raise your hand. Ah, yes. I think they just came from Yorkshire. Now, during the war, I was up at Catterick Camp for 6 weeks because I was a sergeant at the time, and I was up there at the signal school, and the fellow in the Nissen hut next to me was from Aberdeen. And he said, Jesus Christ, Jimmy, you must come up to Aberdeen. And that's what I remember about him, except also is that it was the very first time we heard an air raid siren. And we both sat up in bed like this, and our stomachs were so tight, you know, the first time I had ever heard one, and I don't think he had heard one either. And we said, what's that? No, anyway. We finally relaxed it, you know, and worked it around a little bit and everything else. But I think it's much more fun if you just ask me questions, because then I may make a speech. All right? So, who's got a question? Yes. Well, the song I'll sing for you is the one that I did on the animated show, which is an old Welsh song, and there is no name to it that I know of. I have tried through all sorts of different communications and so on to find out the name for it, but at the time I learned 4 Welsh songs, and one was the Ash Grove in Welsh, and I have lost most of the words to that, you know, in the Welsh Gaelic. But I found a lady in San Francisco who got the words again for me, and I still haven't worked on them, so I don't know them. But she also gave me another verse and also sang it for me, and I have that on a cassette at home. And one of these days, because when I've been on the road for 10 months doing a play, so there's no way that I can do things and be able to relax and settle down to learn them again. But if you want that little song, I'll sing it for you. My dearest dear, yon over wind, yon deep, yon brisk, yon take a through. Over the grass, dollar like you know, when and God rode I began I through. My dearest dear, yon over wind, yon deep, yon brisk, yon take a brow. Above a brassad allerlas like you know, Gwen and God rode Isaac and I through. Okay. That was the Cornish Green. That's when I learned those songs. And I learned them from an actor, a Welsh actor named Gwilym Williams, who did the original Cornish Green on Broadway and I'm sure in London. And his name is Gwilym Williams, and he was a beautiful teacher and a gorgeous singer. All right. Now, there was another question over here. Yes, sir. Which episode did I like best? Well, I tell you, I tend to be more on the science side. I like the science side better, and that's one of the reasons I like the Doomsday Machine very much. But I also liked Who Mourns for Adonis and The Trouble with Tribbles, because in The Trouble with Tribbles, I did about 95% of my own stunting. And the man who was hired, because one thing you don't do in Hollywood is take a job away from a stuntman, right? But as long as he was hired for the job, then I did my own stunts, except for one thing where he had to use a springboard, I think, you know. But at the end of the scene, he says, "Listen," he says, "if I become a big star, will you be my stuntman?" Because when I was in Toronto, I used to do all my own stunts anyway. You know, I'd fallen out of cars and railway trains and things like that and jumped from this to that. As a matter of fact, I was doing a picture in Spain called Man in the Wilderness about 3.5 years ago. And there was about a 30-foot fall under a whole bunch of cardboard boxes, you know, that they build up. And that's what you fall into, you know. I had about 3 layers of cardboard boxes. But they, you know, I was standing on the edge of the boat, supposed to fall into this, and I said that, you know, and I pretended I was losing my balance, you know, and the director says, no, let the stuntman do that. Anyway, I was quite prepared to do it because that was kind of fun. Well, no, the name, Bishop. You got it. Because you must remember that that's a long time ago for me. And a lot of people ask me a lot of questions about scripts in Star Trek, you know, and you must remember that actors go on to other work, and they really don't remember everybody that was in the show, and also they don't remember the lines, because some people probably here, and I know very well in the United States and Canada, they know every line of every show. I mean, they really do. You've only seen the shows here 3 times, but in the United States, I'm sure they have seen them, each one, at least 20 to 25 times. Because we stopped getting paid for them about 2.5 years ago, so I know darn well that was at least 10. Right? Yes. The answer is a hairy yes. I've been told it's just the right amount, too. Yes, the different instruments that Scotty had to fix things with, right? Yeah. That's what the question was. Did I find the instruments that I had to use fascinating? If I don't repeat a question, please ask me to repeat it if I forget to do it, because I know very well that in the back you don't hear the question that is asked. See, one of the actor's jobs, and any thing he has to do, is to make you believe. And I was given things that were really just pieces of nothing that looked like something, right? And you have to put the belief that that instrument, or whatever you're doing, is doing the job. And you have to make it look like something. And that's part of the world of make-believe. And as a matter of fact, in the very early stages, Gene Roddenberry paid me a very great compliment when he said, when he was talking about getting to the editing of the film that we had already shot, like last week or the week before, he said, when we want anybody to believe something, says we cut to your close-up. That's a great compliment. It's hardly a question, but it's a statement that the human emotions that were on Star Trek were really so real. And that's very true, but you mustn't forget that an actor has to have, first of all, a good script. And you have to have a human situation that can be believed. Because there's no sense you can act all over the place, and if it's not a good human situation, then you're not going to get real human emotions. And a good actor can bring human emotions to any good scene, and that's his job. And I must say that Gene Roddenberry, the creator, did a great job of making sure that all the scripts that came in, including the ones he wrote, had very good human emotions and human conflict. You know, conflict. Because that's what brings on emotions, is conflict, of course. But it has to be built up properly. You can't just throw it in there. And to me, one of the great things about Star Trek, when Gene Roddenberry was really looking after it well, as executive producer, he was very conscious of that. And you have to give him an awful lot of credit for that. Okay? Yes. Did we ever have to change any Star Trek scripts because we thought they were not technically correct? Yes, many times we had to do that. I can't remember which ones, but I know very many times that because I have always been scientifically minded myself, and I would say that no, I'm sorry, no matter, even if I didn't know anything about matter and antimatter, or what an acceleron does and so on, I still had a really good basic idea of it, a much better idea than, shall we say, the writer had. And I would explain that to them, and they would change it. All right? Yes, way in the back there, the hand first one up. Well, the fellow beside you raised his hand, or was it you? All right.
I'd like to ask you a particular episode
I hope so.
Good one for agony. There was a bit when you were thrown over an altar by the gods.
I was thrown over an altar by the gods. That was in Who Mourns for Adonis.
Yeah, so you come back in the same stage. Is that your stuntman?
No, that, when I was thrown over the altar.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was the stuntman, but the pulled backwards, that was me. Yes, ma'am. Do I prefer stage to film? Yes, but you don't make so much money on stage. But as I say, I've just spent 10 months doing a play in San Francisco, and it's a new play, and it's called The Trial of James McNeill Whistler, and I play an English barrister in it, with the wig on, you know. And I must say, I hadn't done a stage play for 10 years, and the most time I had ever spent on a stage play was 36 performances, and I did 212 with this play, and it's great, you know, to be able to get on stage. I would rather, I'd like to be on stage at least 10 or 11 months a year, and because, you know, you can make a living on the stage if you spend at least that amount of time a year at it. But you can't. You just like when you were working on Star Trek, you know, for 3 years, then you're working all the time. But most actors in the United States, they're really only average, maybe luckily 2 months of work a year. You know. But if you're good and you get your rates up, then you should make enough money in those 2 months to last you for the whole year. All right? No, I would just, would I, if I was given a beautiful female android, would I take her apart, or would I just treat her as a woman? Certainly I'd treat her as a woman. Yes, Cheryl. Sharon. He doesn't mention the engine room. She just finished reading The Making of Star Trek by Gene Roddenberry and Steve Whitfield, right? And he doesn't mention the dimensions, right, of the engine room. You know why? Because you know is that in the really in the making of Star Trek, and the part of the engineer was really not considered at all. It just became popular gradually, because every script that came in put an engineer in there, and then they had to, because I was only given a contract of 5 out of 13 in the first incident, you know, in the first 13 shows, and then every writer started putting in this character called Scotty, and so they had to give me a contract of 13 out of 13. So that's also a compliment to me and the character. Yes, thank you. What was my first reaction when I saw the sets that they had built? Well, my first reaction was that they were not complicated enough. Really. The bridge looked fine to me. You know, that was in a way complicated enough, but the transporter room and some of the other rooms were not, and the medical rooms and so on, they just weren't, to me, complicated enough. To me, when you work in space, in like 2001, the man who did the spaceship there was such a gorgeous thing. I just looked at that and I said, yes. All right, thank you. Yes.
I'm sorry I didn't recognize it because you had a beard. I apologise. Did you have to do that for a part, or are you just wearing it for fun?
Well, now did you all hear that? All right. Well, it was about the beard. No, actually, to do that movie, The Man in the Wilderness, I grew a beard for that, and but it was a scraggly, scruffy beard, and I also found out that I had white down here, and I had to darken some of that because it looked too distingué, shall we say. And then I had the English hairdresser at the end of the movie decided he would shape the beard for me the way he wanted it, and I was quite happy with it. So I'll keep it on, you know, and it worked out very well in the play that I was doing because it was 1873, you know, and
Anyway,
so,
my apologies, sorry.
Thank you, dear. Yes, way back.
Me?
You.
Do you have a favourite blooper scene?
Do I have what?
A favourite blooper?
Do I have the blooper film?
Which one is your favourite?
I'm sorry, I'm just not getting it. I'm hearing about one word out of three.
Do you have a favourite film?
No.
That's what you said.
Yeah, I would think, you mean, my most favorite film?
Blooper!
Oh, Blooper. No, I like them all. I don't know when you're scheduled to see them. I have no idea. But there's one thing I wanted to mention. Oh, Jenny, is that there is no schedule for just sitting down and doing autographs. You know, so I will be after I finish here. I will maybe out in the lobby, or maybe right here would be better. Just sit down and do a whole bunch of autographs between 1 and 2 o'clock, which is lunchtime. But you know, we should have a time set aside for that, I think, because so many people have asked me in the hallway or when I'm standing up, and it's so much faster and easier to do autographs when you're sitting at a table and you have a line here, a queue, you know, and that's by far the best way. Yes, sir.
You have an Irish name, you have an American accent, and you take a Scottish accent. Do you have trouble finding that Scottish to get it over?
I don't think so. I'm Irish, the only one in my family out of 2 other brothers and 1 sister that was born in Vancouver, British Columbia. But you say I have an American accent. I suppose I do, but Americans say, oh, you can hear that Canadian in you and the Irish too, you know. So. What is my favorite film? This has come out. I think it is Lawrence of Arabia. Yes, ma'am. Way back.
What's your reaction to the animations?
What's my reaction to the animation? You know, it's just nice to get to work. But, no, on the animation I do at least 3 voices on every one. And the last 2 that I do 4 voices. The animation is, to me, just a kind of a stopgap thing, because I know that Gene Roddenberry is now home writing a feature movie of Star Trek, and if it all goes through, if everything works well and all the contracts are nicely met, and Paramount doesn't get mad at Gene, and Gene doesn't get mad at Paramount, we'll probably be working on it next March, and you know, so yes, sir.
When will it come back, actually, in serial form again?
Any what?
When will it come back in serial form again?
Well, what they expect in the result of the feature movie is that the feature movie will pay for all the new sets, and then Paramount will keep the sets and do new Star Treks.
Well,
you know, and what they will probably do, the way the pattern is going now, they will probably come out once every 3 weeks and be hour-and-a-halves. Wait a minute, gentlemen. Same gentleman.
Sorry. Will the same crew be in it? Same people?
Oh, well, as a matter of fact, I understand that Paramount wanted a whole new crew. I also understand that they have been talked out of that.
If Star Trek does come back, will you come back as Scotty?
You want me?
If Star Trek Scotty.
I'll even shave my beard off, love. Yes, the white arm. Any black here?
You said earlier on that you have to say in English. Could we hear your English accent?
Well, I do quite a lot of English accents, you know. But would you like to hear part of the closing speech, the closing argument of the play? And it's about, you know, if you know Whistler, he painted Whistler's mother. But, I mean, that's the only thing I ever knew about him before I started the play. But then I saw an awful lot of prints of his paintings, and he really was quite fabulous, you know. And he was one of the first impressionist painters in England at the time, around 1870 to 80 and so on. And there was, you know, he was a very nasty character, really, but very funny. As a matter of fact, he's supposed to have brought Oscar Wilde out of the woodwork and told him, go ahead, say what you want to say, you know, so that Oscar Wilde then became a little loose of tongue. And but Whistler was a very funny man and very small, tiny little, with a Napoleonic complex and so on. So we had a very wonderful actor playing the part of Whistler, and the name of Rudy Solari, who was in one Star Trek thing, and he played an Indian. I can't remember the name of the show. I'll give you part of the speech as much as I can remember, because as you say, once you finish the work, then you start forgetting lines, you know. Taste, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, has long been accepted as sufficient qualification for the utterance of judgment in music, poetry, and painting. And whereas no polished member of society is at all affected at admitting himself neither engineer, mathematician, or astronomer, and therefore remains willingly discreet and taciturn upon these subjects, still would he be highly offended were he supposed to have no voice in what is clearly to him a matter of taste. And so, of necessity, he becomes the backer of the critic. And the millennium of taste sets in. The whole scheme is simple. The galleries are to be thrown open on Sundays, and the public dragged from their beer and bangers to the British Museum. Art, that for ages has hewn its own history in marble, written its own comment on canvas, shall it now suddenly stand still and stammer? Shall it wait for wisdom from the passer-by, for guidance from the hand that holds neither brush nor chisel out upon this shallow conceit? Still, quite alone stands Ruskin, whose writing is art, but whose art is unworthy of his writing. And what greater sarcasm can Ruskin pass upon himself than that he preaches to young men that which he cannot perform, talking for 40 years of what he has never done? Is that enough?
Were you interested in science fiction before Star Trek, or was
I interested in science fiction before Star Trek?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I read a tremendous amount of science fiction before Star Trek, and have read very little since. But because, to me, you can underline the word science when it comes to reading science fiction. And except for Arthur C. Clarke, there has been very little science fiction, to me, written since I read all the ones that Gerald Kirsch also wrote very good science fiction. But to me, the sort of science fiction without science underlined about monsters and people in the center of the earth and things, I don't like that. I personally don't. You know, if I look at a book and I'm going to buy it, I read through and I say, no, I don't like that. I honestly don't believe in that kind of thing, because I think if, and I'm pretty sure there is other forms of life on in our world, universe, our galaxies and everything else, but to me, I'm sure they're very similar to what we look like now, with maybe bigger heads, shorter legs, something like that, but I just don't think they are going to be monsters. Was there ever a Star Trek episode written, shall we say, that never got past the censor? Actually, no, because they send the synopsis or the synopses to the censor. They send the first draft to the censor right off the bat. The question is, was there any, shall we say, Star Trek script that had a certain amount of violence in it, or a certain social message that was that did not get by the censor? Actually, to my knowledge, there wasn't any that didn't get by, shall we say, the censor. But I understand that there are at least 3 that you have not seen over here in England, which is, you know, it's too bad, but that is your own censors working. But in the United States, actually, the FCC does not really censor in that form. NBC has their own censor, and they know what they want to put on the air. But I don't think that... I do not remember anyone being censored, per se, right at the start. You know. Yes, that young fellow in the blue shirt.
What's the relationships between warp drives?
What's the relationship between what?
Warp drives.
Warp drive?
One equals,
what's the relationship between warp drive and what?
Between warp drives, warp 1 equals so, warp 2 equals what else?
I think he means what speed is warp.
Warp 1 is the speed of light. Warp 2 is the speed of light times 2. Right? Warp 3 is the speed of light times... I'm sorry. Warp 2 is the speed of light times the cube of 2. Warp 3 is the speed of light times the cube of 3. All right? And would I take the chance, or would I go if space travel came within my lifetime? I certainly would, as I'm supposed to do a lot of daring things. What were the first 2 words? Oh, off stage. Oh, yes, we get along off stage with the Klingons.
Find that having been in Star Trek hinders you when you want to go into straight acting, or does it help you?
I'm sorry. I didn't get that. Do I want to go into straight acting after Star Trek?
No, what I meant was, having been in Star Trek, does it hinder you when you audition for parts, or does it help you?
Oh, no, actually, Star Trek has hindered me getting other parts. Because, you know, if the producer, director doesn't know me, then my agent will say, well, he played Scotty on Star Trek. And they say, well, I don't want a Scotsman. Which it does hinder you, there's no doubt about it. You become typecast in Hollywood. If I ever meet any of the other members of the cast of Star Trek afterwards, and were we particularly friendly? Actually, Star Trek cast and the crew, directors, and everything else was probably the nicest group to work with that I have ever worked with. And I have worked on single shots on some other series, and I know some actors who just wouldn't want to be on some of those other series because everybody was so nasty, you know. But in Star Trek, they were really gorgeous people, but very few of us ever became friendly, shall we say, social, off the set. But we liked each other on the set. But does Leonard come to my house for dinner and I go to his house for dinner? No. And the same with Bill and D. Kelly, and I'm sure they don't do it with each other. You know, we were friendly, but we all led our own separate lives. Except that I became very friendly with Gene Roddenberry and vice versa, but I never knew him before Star Trek. Yes. Oh, yes, I've done quite a bit of Shakespeare, but I would like to sometime in my career play King Lear. To what extent are we allowed to change the lines in the script? Well, that depends on the directors and producers, writers' believability in you and your character, and you are allowed great limits in changing the lines in your script if you can convince them that the character is not really would not really say that line, you know, or it's better to say some other line. Yes, sir. When we take the animation where we all together do the parts separately. The very first one we did, we were the majority of us were there together, except George and Uhura. Pardon me. But most of the other times we go in and do our different voices separately. Yes. Do you think Star Trek has been exploited with gimmicks, you know, like spaceships and all that sort of stuff being sold commercially, right? Is that basically it? Well, as a matter of fact, they really goofed on Star Trek. Because they didn't, until about 3 years ago, didn't really start pushing what we call the merchandising part. They really goofed all the way around. You know, they just didn't believe. NBC didn't believe, Paramount didn't believe, but they're coming around to believing now. And also they're coming around to merchandising, you know. And when the feature film is made and we go into another series again, I can tell you that you're going to be swamped with the commercial gimmicks of things. Because to me, they're out of their mind. Any show that is popular, they're going to use it one way or the other to sell merchandise. You know. Do the actors get any kickback from that? I think I've got $35 so far. It's so small that you can't believe it. Yes, Jenny. I'm sorry. Oh, the loose. Oh, that was all done very technically. Would it be possible for the Enterprise to start a weekly magazine for all Star Trek fans? Called Star Trek. Well, that's up to the merchandising people, you know. Obviously, I don't see why they don't do it. You know, really, I mean, as I say, to me, they've goofed. There are so many things they could do to make money on, you know, on a merchandising situation, but they just have goofed as far as I'm concerned. Yes. Did everybody hear that question? Did we see a change coming about, shall we say, after the first year's episodes?
Yeah.
In what, a change of moral outlook? Not really. No, we the actor usually accepts what comes in. You know, if he doesn't like it, then he has his choice of whether he's going to work on the show or not. You know, but we liked so much of what was said on Star Trek that sometimes an awful lot of the issues had already been said by that time. You know, by the time you get into the second and the third year, you can really discount the third year as far as any real issues were concerned, I think. Because even then, Gene Roddenberry, because he knew that NBC was not going to pick it up for a fourth year, he sort of gave up, you know, and let somebody else produce it. Well, it's been a long time. I'm just trying to repeat the question. It's been a long time since we've done Star Trek. Do I feel sometimes that, you know, when I get asked to these conventions that they wouldn't talk about Star Trek? No, what I really prefer is that not only would either Star Trek start again, but I would get onto a completely different series, and I would have at least 2 images that they could typecast me on. Because I really do enjoy seeing the fans, and Star Trek fans to me are really super, and they are so nice. I do not like going to science fiction conventions, you know, because straight science fiction fans are not anywhere near as nice as straight Star Trek fans. That's about as much as I can answer that. Yes, any further questions? All right, I tell you what I'll do is I might as well just start autographing right now, and any of you want to come up with that, let me.